I guess I would classify what we do more as a professional service rather than being an installer or fabricator. I think installation and fabrication are things that we do, but the main thing that we do is on this professional services side, really the in-house design management, project management side. That's the side that actually takes a job from being a dream to being a reality. And I think that's the hardest part about what we do. And so we have a lot of folks on our team who are oriented that way. They're problem solvers.
This is the Mass Timber Group Show. I'm Nick.
And I'm Brady, and we talk to sustainable building experts. Today, we had the chance to level up our timber IQ by talking with Chris Evans, the president of Timberlab. Timberlab is a vertically integrated team on a mission to advance the mainstream adoption of mass timber, and they are doing it. It's hard to throw a rock in the mass timber world and not hit a project that they've been involved with. From consulting to fabrication and even install, they're your one-stop shop to get your mass timber projects off the ground. Chris covered a lot today, and I'm excited for you all to hear the conversation.
I was excited because I had no idea Chris was the man with the original idea of starting a mass timber division within Swinerton, which then became Timberlab. We talked about some of their projects under development, like the $2 billion Portland International Airport opening up next year, the Thesis project, which is also in Portland, and the world's tallest residential mass timber building called the Ascent in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We also got into the Heartwood, which is in Seattle, Washington. It is the first Type 4C exposed mass timber tall wood building in the United States, standing 8 stories when completed. The Heartwood is also a part of the Affordable Housing Initiative.
But before we jump in, if you like hearing sustainable building experts share their insights, stories, and experience, please hit that subscribe button. So with that, let's get into it. So Chris, Timberlab seems to be everywhere in the mass timber world. What are you guys doing differently?
Well, good question. I think it might not be what we're doing differently. I think we've come into the mass timber space, essentially 6 years ago, and we just learned by watching what everybody else was doing. So I think, for the past 6 years, we've been watching and learning from all the manufacturers and installers that are in the marketplace. And I think by watching and observing, we've just been trying to figure out what's missing. I think that's probably, if we're doing anything differently, that's what we've been doing, is saying what's missing right now, what's missing in the next few years. A good example of that would be, 6 years ago, we recognized that there's not enough CNC capacity, but there's enough glulam capacity in the marketplace. So if we could add our own CNC capacity, we could open up the supply chain for glulam vendors that otherwise didn't have a path into these commercial mass timber buildings. So in 2021, we opened up a facility in Portland, Oregon, 2 CNC machines, and that opened up the whole Willamette Valley to these existing glulam producers that have been here, to really have a value add service come in and be able to help get their products to the marketplace. For us, that helped us be more competitive with some of the turnkey suppliers that were out there. But that was like a needed step in the evolution of the supply chain for mass timber in the North American market. And we've just done something similar in Greenville, South Carolina, where we opened up a fabrication facility. We have our second CNC machine going in as we speak right now. And so those moves to do that have been just a product of watching the market, understanding what services are there, what's missing, and then trying to forecast that in a way that we can adapt and help, increase the supply chain, to help satisfy our mission. Our mission is to accelerate the mainstream adoption of mass timber in the commercial construction market throughout the U.S. And so those are the ways that we're doing it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And one of the things that we hear a lot from people that are in the mass timber space is there's a shortage of people that are experienced in installing mass timber. And that's also something that you guys work with too, right?
Yeah, we do. We've been installing projects over the past 6 years with our team. And I, I think that that part of the market is, I, even though it appears that there's a shortage, I think that there's a lot of capable and talented firms out there that can do this work, that already exist in every market in the US. And it's just about having them have the opportunity to go out and do it. Um, I think that this is it's more like a structural steel, precast concrete, or commercial concrete formwork job than it is like a framing job. And I think that's where some of the confusion might be. People see wood and they think, let's go hire a framing contractor to come in and um, put this building together. But all these pieces are really, most of the time, prefabricated offsite, installed with a big crane. So engineered rigging, bracing plans, picking pieces into place. Folks with that type of experience, this is just it's just a different thing they're picking up and putting in place. So concrete formwork guys and companies do that all day long. Same with structural steel, precast. So very similar to those trades that already exist and those best practices. So I think I think all the right components are there in every market across the US. It's just a matter of folks coming in to lean into the work, see that there's enough of it to do, and dedicate some resources. At the same time, I would say there's some super specialized aspects of it. I think specifically when you get to the hardware that's attached to the beams, um, all those connections are, I guess, important. There's a lot of screws going into those connections. So if a screw is missing, or if something is broken, or it's not installed right, the person installing it really has to understand that. So they need to understand what they can and can't do to timber. They need to understand how the connection details work. Um, and that's probably what makes it a little bit more difficult for someone to come in. They need to understand what they're putting in place. They can't just think of it as a um, as 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 just a thing without consequence. So they have to be aware if something's missing and understand how timber works, I guess. So if there's any complications to people adapting to installing mass timber, it's around just becoming timber nerds and trying to fully understand how timber hardware works and what you can and can't do, and how to raise your hand when there's a problem, and help identify it so that you're not putting in a piece in the incorrect manner. Yeah.
So as a fabricator, as an installer, wearing both hats, like where do you guys generally come in on a project? Is it the architect calling you? Is it the glue lam producer that's calling you? Like where are you guys kind of jumping in on these at?
Yeah. So I guess I would classify what we do more as a professional service, that rather than being an installer or fabricator. I think um, installation and fabrication are things that we do, but the main thing that we do is on this professional services side. So we have some in-house engineering capabilities, in-house detailing capabilities, and then really the in-house design management and project management side. That's the side that actually takes a job from being a dream to being a reality, and navigating that process efficiently and effectively. Um, I think that's the hardest part about what we do. And so we have a lot of folks on our team who are oriented that way. They're problem solvers. They know how to come in and talk to an architect, talk to an owner. They understand the supply chain and how cost works, so that they can drive to cost efficient solutions and help drive the design to get to a place where it could be fabricated, get to a place where it can be installed. But once we get to that place where where you can hit go on the CNC machine or go on the install, all the hard work has been done to that point. That's just like the cherry on top at the end of the day, I would say. So it's the hard work is the stuff that you don't see. So it's the stuff that happens in the models, on the shop drawings, and in countless meetings of coordination with other trades to help bring that project to a reality.
What stage do you normally like when somebody comes to you? I mean, is it
Yeah.
it's still back of the napkin type of a project, and then you kind of hold their hands all the way through, or when it comes to like a developer or investor, where do you like to see them at?
Yeah. On a personal side, I think I like both being involved at the front end of the job when it's just a concept on a napkin. I also, I personally like to be involved when it's the design's progressed a little bit more and you can come in and add some value to what's already been put on paper and help show and demonstrate how you can make things more efficient. Our team gets involved, anywhere from that concept level, like we have an idea, we want to do this, um, the whole way up to what I'd say maybe like a 50 or 80% CD set. Sometimes that's as late as we get involved. I think we can have the most benefit to a project the earlier in the project that we get involved. So like on some of our larger jobs like Ascent or the Portland Airport project, we're involved in those jobs really, really early on, so that we could have influence over the process without there having to be redesigned into the drawing set. So I think that worked out best for the owners and for the project overall in those situations.
You mentioned you had a couple of engineers in house, and you're talking about Timberlab as a professional services company rather than an installer or a fabricator. What kind of approach do you guys take to the people that are on your team? Who are you guys bringing in, and what does their kind of growth and journey in the mass timber world look like?
Yeah, good question. It's different. I'd say, on a personal level, I'm just really excited about our teammates who we have on our team. We have, I think, some of the best people in the construction industry, and I think we've been super fortunate um, to be working with Mass Timber has drawn a lot of people to want to come work with us. So we've just been blessed to have really really talented individuals knock on our door and want to come join the team. So that's a huge plus. And then we've had people come from in all different ways. We've hired a couple people right out of high school who they were going to take a gap year. Instead, they came and worked in our fabrication facility, and they're multiple years in now and very smart, capable, and they'll be able to make a whole career working with us. And we'll nurture them along the way to learn everything that they need to know through that process. We've also hired folks right out of school to come work in our fabrication facility to figure out what the workflow is like for for the computer files and how the computer files make their way into a CNC machine, how the actual machinery works, how the fabrication process works, how the hardware assembly works. And they'll, continue their career kind of starting in that fabrication facility. And then we've also hired a lot of, architects, either out of school or after their first job with an architecture firm to come work on the virtual design and construction side, doing detailing for projects. We do all of our detailing work in Revit, and that lends itself pretty nicely to the existing skill sets in the architecture community. Most of those students come out with Revit experience. So I'd say our team, it's mixed. It has structural engineers, architects, it has teammates who haven't, you know, went to a traditional 4-year school program, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, industrial engineers. We kind of have a wide range and mix, which actually makes it a lot of fun. We have a diverse group of folks that work for us.
And Nick and I have met several of your team, whether that's touring your facilities in Portland, whether that's meeting your business development folks out and about. Um, Every single one of them has been very, very professional, very kind, and very welcoming, especially for somebody that is an outsider to the AEC industry, but particularly the mass timber aspect of it. I would say that they were very, very welcoming. What's kind of your leadership style, and what are the kind of the company values in there that you think attracts those kind
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, I think day one we've tried to hire the right people, then those people have hired the right people. And I think, you know, I got into this the mass timber side from being on the general construction side. I got into the general construction side after I had my own business and I was a framing contractor. But I got a math degree and I wasn't your traditional construction management grad coming into commercial construction. And I think um, part of what I've enjoyed is learning. So what I really like about mass timber is we can get super technical about this subject. It's ever evolving, so you have to keep learning every day. Stuff changes, codes change, the way you apply it changes. There's so much room for opportunity of optimization, growth in the industry, and I think that for me that keeps it very interesting. And so I'm a naturally curious person. I want to figure out how things work. I think we've probably hired people that are like that are genuinely curious individuals who like to solve problems, and they don't need to have a lot of micromanagement in that process. They just need to have the hard skills where they ask good questions, they try different things. Um, I think, you know, people make mistakes all the time. People make the wrong decisions all the time, and I think welcoming that attitude of saying it's okay to sit and make mistakes, and let's just learn from the mistakes, apply those forward, and teach everybody about what those mistakes are so that we can't. And I think our experience to date has just been a series of learning lessons on every project we've done. We've made a mistake. We've done something that we want to do better. Um, we've learned from that process, and we've tried to have that growth mindset in excellence of just trying to keep learning and keep evolving. So I think it's hiring folks like that who are curious, usually have some hobbies that they like to do and are genuinely just interested in what they're working on. And I would say most of our people don't see this as a job as much as it is an experience and a something that they're very passionate about, which ultimately has we think a very beneficial result to the planet and its people to help be stewards of our next generations. And I think that this gives us, so it hits on all those different levels. And so I think people generally that makes them happy, and then they turn out to be nice and fun to be around. So,
Well, you're creating a really exciting environment for people to be a part of. I mean, you've already talked about one of your projects that you're doing, the Portland International Airport. You've worked on the world's tallest residential building in the Ascent in Milwaukee. And just to kind of speak a little bit deeper to those projects, I mean, the Portland Airport is unbelievable. I mean, to here a couple statistics here: 3.3 million board feet of Douglas fir being used, over 400 80-foot glue lam beam arches or glue lam arches. Um, it's truly stunning. We got to fly into the International Mass Timber Conference, not the one in March, but the year before, and got to see that a little bit. And then we took, like Brady said, we toured your facility and started speaking to the inner workings of the Portland Airport. It's over a $2 billion project, isn't it? That for like the overall development.
Yeah, it's something of that magnitude. I'm not quite sure the exact dollars, but I was there last week, and I hadn't been there for a while. I hadn't been there since all the modules were prefabricated out in the runway. And so I walked in for the first time, I think last Monday. We met with the USDA secretary out there, which was a pretty cool experience. That was the first time I had been there for a while, and to see the modules in place in the actual airport. And I walked in and I stopped because I was blown away. It was just absolutely, totally amazing. And it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a ticket to go somewhere next May. I was asking the head guy, I was like, okay, when in May is this actually going to open to the public? Because I'm going to get tickets to go somewhere, and so I can go hang out in there and just actually experience what it's like on that side. It's truly amazing. I think that project was one that we won that back in 2019. So you win a project in 2019. That's a 5-year long project. It seems like an eternity at that point. Like, this will probably never get built type of eternity. And to be at this point now where you can actually sit back and see it nearly at completion of our work is super cool. To see the thumbprint that our people had in that design process with ZGF and KPFF. And we worked with some great partners on there, Zippo Laminators out of Eugene, and Freres out of Mill City. They provided great products. And I would say that this project's like a testament to how you can do a lot of simple things with wood, make it look beautiful. At the same time, for as simple as it looks, it was just a highly complex project. It was complex logistically. It was complex in a lot of reasons and ways that people will never see. And we had some really like novel uses of mass timber. Like, one of my favorite details, I don't even know if you can see it, but one of my favorite details on the project is our team came up with this idea for these skylight curbs. Instead of to build it with steel and cold form studs, and build up that whole structure, probably 5 or 6 trades to go into that, they basically made a mass plywood upturned beam on top of this roof. And the roof is bending 2 different directions. So this MPP curb that's sitting up there has this arched C shape cut out of it on an angle, like a beveled cut, and it just perfectly fits on top of the roof to help fit these skylights on there. And it's a super efficient approach. We used one piece of wood to do a structural process and also back the roofing to it. And I think that's like one of these little details that is a testament to how our people are. They're problem solvers. They think creatively about things, and they took that piece of scope, which wasn't even in our scope, and said, hey, this is a way, from a builder's mindset, how we could build this more efficiently for the whole project. And we could use this type of product to be able to do it. And I think that speaks to our roots, as a general contractor, coming in and developing mass timber specialties. That way we think a lot about the other systems that are in the building, not just the timber itself, but how does it interact with every other system inside the building.
Well, speaking of failing forward and having that attitude, I mean, this is a brand new industry. And if you're not breaking something or making mistakes, you're just not doing it well enough. Because, I mean, you have to push the envelope forward. There's probably 1,000 different mistakes, but is there something that comes to mind that you had to learn from, and it just kind of made everything come together in the end, or something like that?
Yeah, I think there's, probably back in, I guess it was 2018 or 2019, we had a project, and on that project, we had a choice. We could use a turnkey provider of the whole building, and we had plans to put in a fabrication facility. And as soon as we put in a fabrication facility, we have to buy glulam direct. We have to detail that glulam out. We have to buy the hardware direct. We have to integrate all that stuff. And that switch from buying it turnkey to buying all the individual parts and services to be able to get to that equivalent package, that was, I think, a huge point for us. We consciously decided, let's go out and fracture the purchase of this. We'll get a better deal to the client at the end of the day. And we're going to take on some risk of having to coordinate this whole thing. But if we never do it, we're never going to learn how to do it. So it was at that point just taking the plunge and procuring the job that way. And it was a tough job, but we learned so much from that process. And if we had never done it, or if we deferred that decision to later, we would just slow down our progress and ability to learn, for people to learn, and for us to develop the way in which we want to do things. So I think that was a really good point. I wouldn't say of failure, but of intense learning, and learning how we should do things. And that it was a tough project, but at the same time, one that moved us forward, many times over.
Speaking of moving things forward, so you talk about the lessons that Timberlab learned and you're unfolding inside of the company and you're growing from. You guys have also been a part of projects that actually move the entire industry forward. And specifically, I'm talking about the near shake table test.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with that, why you're involved, and kind of what you guys are hoping to get out of that?
Yeah, I think, again, back to that mindset of learning and being at the forefront of the industry. You don't take those types of projects to make money. You take those types of projects to understand the system that's being proposed, to learn more about it, so that you can find those next opportunities to apply it on other projects. And we've done that with multiple projects. We're doing an all wood BRB project, a buckle restraint brace made out of mass plywood, with Utah, and that project, it's a 3-year project. And that project, it's similar. It's another lateral system made out of wood that has resiliency to it. We're doing that for next to nothing, just so that we can be there to be able to learn about what's coming up and be a part of that. So we dedicate a certain part of time and effort each year towards research and development. I think that's the lab portion of the Timberlab is about wanting to experiment, wanting to try different things. And we realize, the steel industry, the concrete industry, they've had 100 years to optimize their systems. And we haven't had that yet, and optimize their supply chain. So we're trying to push those boundaries, learn as much as we can on the R&D side, develop and answer the holes that are in the supply chain with our own services, if that means advancing the industry forward. And we're doing that in this context of trying to learn, experiment, problem solve, to help move everything forward.
You mentioned the concrete industries have like 100 years, give or take, to kind of optimize their systems and grow. On the flip side, like tall mass timber has been around for, call it, less than a decade here, or thereabouts somewheres. But depending on who you talk to, the demand and the industry growth is pushing like 20-25% annually. What are you guys seeing for mass timber trends moving forward over the next decade?
Yeah, we've seen, depending on what graph you're looking at, like a 40% growth rate over the past 9 years. That's like a doubling every 2 years. Some industry experts predict it will double every 2 years. But just say that if you look at the commercial solar or industrial solar industry from 2013 to 2021. That doubled every like 2.6 years. At least my own math has it doubling every 2.6 years. But as a frame of reference, that's certain things got the solar industry to the point where it was able to do that. And so we look at some of those parallels. Is there a parallel with that industry and in our industry? And they had sustained growth going through there. I feel like growth will still have sustained growth. We see more and more projects coming out every month that are farther along in design and already being designed mass timber, not a question of should we design this in mass timber. That was a 3-year ago question. Should we design mass timber? Should we not? Now it's, okay, we're seeing more and more projects already being designed there. Now, how do we optimize that design and make it better? And in 5 years, we're going to see plan sets come out that are really good details, optimized and efficient. And over the next 20 years, the whole AEC community their timber IQ will advance to be at a place where, all the services we offer now, might not be needed on every single project. And that's a good thing, to get to a place where architects, engineers know how to detail out good, repeatable, efficient details that are buildable. I think that's a piece of the continued growth in the industry. The supply chain obviously needs to continue to grow for sustained use of mass timber. And then, those are probably two of the big things. So I see it continuing on as we go, as we move over the next 5 to 10 years. And the new code adoption for tall timbers is great and puts us there. We still need to build the projects. And so, high interest rates don't help that. Other things don't help that. But I look at it in a different lens. I look at that mass timber, no matter what the overall commercial construction industry is doing as a whole, if that shrinks a little bit or expands a little bit, the percentage of market share that mass timber has on that overall commercial construction market is rising, irrespective of what's happening to the overall volume of the whole commercial industry. And I think it's going to continue to do that. There's no reason why it shouldn't at this point. There are beautiful buildings. It's a more sustainable way to build buildings. And I think that people are generally happier when they're living in the buildings or working in the buildings. So there's no reason why that trend shouldn't continue. I think for the rest of my career, I think in the next 20 years, it will continue pretty strong.
Well, speaking about some of your other projects, I don't know if this is a play of yours. It probably is, and it's smart, but you work with rock star architects, from Thomas Robinson with Lever Architecture and the Thesis Building, which I actually had the pleasure of walking at the last
Oh, nice.
tour. Yeah, Thomas is awesome. And
Yeah.
anyways, but also to speak about the Heartwood Apartments with Susan Jones, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Atelier Jones Architecture. And that's the first 4C, 8-story, fully exposed mass timber apartment complex out there in Seattle. Can you speak a little bit about that project and what makes it so cool and cutting edge?
Yeah. I mean, Susan's awesome. And that whole project was really, she's the heart and soul of that project and making that project happen. She did it with a Wood Innovations grant. She named the team in that grant without having a developer or a piece of land. And so she said, we want to do this project. And then she went and found, the right client to go work with and do this project on. And so that in and of itself, a way to go procure a project is pretty cool. And I think early on she got the right team there, and then she's just great to work with. We talked through some ways that we could keep procurement options open and flexible with the design of the building, and had a great team with DCI engineers, and that whole project as a whole was just a lot of fun. A great team, and really is demonstrating that, yeah, you can go build workforce housing on a relatively small lot, and instead of building 5 stories of stick over 2 of concrete on that same piece of dirt, you can go build an 8-story building. You have 14% more um, density with your number of apartments, and that can compete with that traditional 5 over 2 approach. So I think on all those levels, even though the cost per square foot of that mass timber structure costs more than that other way of building, getting those additional units onto that property under that 85-foot requirement, I think that's what actually makes the project really interesting and repeatable. I think since then, the code's opened up to allow up to 12-story, fully exposed 2-hour buildings on, a type 4B code. At the time, they didn't allow that, but even if they did, we're height restricted at that point. But I think this type of project sets the mark that this can be done, and I think we'll start to see maybe not more of the 8 stories. In certain places, the 8-story will make sense, but we'll definitely see 12-story mass timber residential projects coming up, especially with some of the freedom that you have in the height restrictions on the Type 4B, and what you can do, because you can really build that 12-story timber structure for residential on a podium. So if you have a podium that's mixed use and you have retail or some other types of things into that program, now you have some flexibility there. You have some height flexibility and the ability to use timber for a majority portion of that building. So that's really exciting. Great project. Great to be at the finish of that project and see that whole building in place, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's one of my favorite ones. I think the very first mass timber house I ever saw was Susan Jones' personal
Oh
CLT
yeah,
house.
yeah.
Yeah. But you've worked on a lot of different projects. You've built an incredible team. You've been part of a really innovative company that's kind of taking over the mass timber world. It's kind of like asking somebody to pick their favorite child, but what would you consider to be your greatest professional accomplishment?
Um, Gosh, I have no idea how to answer that. I think I don't know. I mean, I like to come to work every day and have fun and enjoy what we're doing. And I'm really excited about our team and our people at Timberlab, and it's been, I think, the context in which this happened is it's really, I own my own company out of college, a small framing company in Portland. I went to work with Swinerton, and about a year and a half into working with Swinerton, it's 100% employee owned company. I just said, okay, I'm all in. The culture is right for me. The way they embrace, uh, you know, creativity, and you can talk to anybody within the company, and there's no idea that's a bad idea. And there's just open doors throughout. It's a great place to work. And when I was on the general construction side, I lived in Hawaii for 8 years. Um, every step of the way, I was just impressed. I saw smart people that could teach me more things. And I basically came to Swinerton to learn as much as I could about the commercial construction industry and be around smarter, brighter people than myself. And that's true till today. That is just great people. And so I think what I noticed, and I guess what gave me the empowered me to go ask to start something like Timberlab, was I saw another group within Swinerton start a renewable solar industrial group. And they basically started that from one small project in San Diego and an idea like, we're going to start a solar industrial group. And our company was open enough to say, okay, great. We're going to support you in doing that, and helped grow that company. They grew that company to be, in the top 3 engineer, procure, construct solar industrial companies in the country, which is really awesome. And so first 8 years of my career here, I witnessed that. I saw that company start from nothing, grow themselves up. And it really, as an employee in that culture, said, hey, I can, some point, if I see an idea that's worth bringing up to our executive team and saying, let's try this, that they would be willing to answer, listen and be open to it. And so when we did our first project, that was First Tech, Oregon headquarters for First Tech Credit Union. That was in 2017. And it was probably, we were somewhere about almost exactly 6 years ago today, somewhere in this zone, late July, early August. And we're a few weeks into the project and building it. And I went in, I said, hey, I think we should start a mass timber subcontracting company. And they're, one of them was like, yeah, go do it. That's a great idea. Another more sensible person in the room said, Chris, you're 3 weeks into this project and you don't even know if you know how to make money at it yet. What makes you think that this is a good idea? And maybe you should go write a business plan first and explore this idea. And so that, which was a great idea. And I spent 6 months and got with our teammates and put together a business plan of how we would enter the mass timber market. I spent probably 4 months before making that request doing research. So talking to folks in the industry. So like Chris Spickler and Steve Tolnai that were at Structureland, who we did some work with at the time, talking to, anybody I could within the industry. And then I think I printed off every journal article I could find about heavy timber, mass timber, anything timber, through academic resources, read that so I understood the history in the US of our use of heavy timber systems, of the code, of mass timber systems, and then got back to a fundamental question, which is the fundamental question for me was like, will this be like a niche thing, or will there be some compelling reason why this will compete with concrete and steel in the commercial market? And so my answer that I came to personally was that this, I don't think it will just be a little thing you do here and there on some boutique jobs. I think it will take hold in the marketplace. There's some fundamental reasons. One, it's you truly like being inside the buildings. So you can't replace like that feeling of going into one of these buildings, sitting down and spending time there. And so if people just at their core enjoy that, even if you can't put a name on it, that sense of enjoyment translates into something like as commercial viability. The other thing is like we're dealing with a world in which everything's getting warmer, and the global warming and temperatures, everything. We still hit these record months. I think July was a record month, one of the hottest months on record, and that's not going away. And so if we can come up with and use something that can help that in an industry that produces a lot of emissions, then that's a fun place to be. That's a responsible place to be. So those were a couple of the reasons why I felt compelled to say this is going to be more than just a niche thing. It's gonna take more of a hold, and being in an environment with this employee-owned company where no idea is a bad idea and just have discussion with it, and where they're, with open arms saying, yeah, go put together a really good business plan, then we'll talk about it. That's pretty cool. And so I think the answer start off of what you're proud of. I'm proud of that. Like, I'm proud of the fact that, we have, almost a team of 100 working towards building a better future in the country, and being super engaged and excited to be in construction. And that to me is pretty cool. And so I like that. Happy with that.
That's a great answer. I didn't realize that you were the one to kind of break the mold and say, hey guys, guys and gals, we got something big here. Let's do something. And well, because I mean, if you could take a second, because Swinerton was founded in 1888.
Yeah.
It's been around 135 years, and it's an absolute a monumental company that owns many companies under that. What's the difference between Swinerton and Timberlab? And then maybe, hopefully, you can talk about some of the future, because it sounds like you have a new facility out in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. So Swinerton Incorporated owns Swinerton Builders. It owns a number of other companies. It also owns Timberlab. And we really broke out Timberlab from Swinerton Builders, officially January 1st, 2021. We were operating under Swinerton Builders up until that point, and then moved. We had enough traction with what we were doing, that it made sense to make it into a separate company, its own company. And yeah, that's the Swinerton side. What was your other part of the question? I lost that.
Yeah, no worries. And just how Timberlab kind of came into play, but you did a good job at talking about that. But then your new Greensville, South Carolina facility.
Yeah. So in Greenville, we saw a need on the East Coast, again, for some CNC capacity needed out there. There's a number of folks that are making glue lam, but again, we didn't feel enough CNC capacity on the East Coast. And I think the East Coast and the number of projects there, is lagging on what there is on the West Coast, but it's really starting to pick up on the East Coast. So we opened with our new facility there, I think in February, with our first CNC machine. We have second CNC going in this week, as we speak, and we're going gangbusters down there. It's the facility's filled with a couple projects. We're doing a project at in Wilmington, North Carolina, for a local bank there, and that project's probably halfway being erected at this point. So that's going in place, and we're full on that fabrication facility, which is great.
Yeah, Nick and I actually just spent the last week or so putting together like a database of who's producing mass timber, CLT, GLT, NLT, all the different stuff. And as I was going through, I saw how many GLT glue lam producers there were on the East Coast. And it kind of surprised me, because everybody kind of looks at mass timber as like this West Coast Canada thing. But there's a lot down there, and I can definitely see why you guys are putting a facility down there.
Yeah. And for us, it was, I would say in the West Coast, the Willamette Valley has just a number of producers. So our location here was relatively, we didn't have to put much thought into where exactly to be. We're in Portland. There's producers in Southwest Washington, up a little bit more in Central Washington, and then down through that Willamette Valley, down to Eugene and below Eugene. And so here it made sense to be in Portland. On the East Coast, we really had to come up and think about where's the right place to be, because it's a little bit more dispersed. There's no 200-mile area where most of the folks are situated. It's really across the whole South region. So we picked Greenville specifically it's in pretty close. One, Greenville's a pretty cool city. Two, it's pretty close to Clemson University. Clemson does a ton of mass timber research, and they're really at the forefront. One of the institutions like Oregon State University, just at the forefront of mass timber research. So we're close to a really good talent pool in Greenville, with Clemson being so close, with great engineering students and contract students, civil engineering students. So that was part of our reasoning to be there. And then Swinerton, has offices New York City, Charlotte, Atlanta, Dallas, Austin. So that could kind of put us, kind of centralized within those offices, so that we can be a resource there to the Swinerton builders team members as needed.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what kind of projects you guys work on. I know I saw on LinkedIn, you guys are just putting your first one out not too long ago, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So what's next?
Yeah,
for
we just
Timberlab?
finished. Yeah, we just finished a project at the University of Arkansas, and that project just had its last piece put in like 2 weeks ago. So that was the first project out of that facility down there.
Well, congrats! It's obviously up and running.
Thank you.
So what's next? What's next for Timberlab?
What's next? Well, that's a good question. We're going to continue to do what we've been doing. Really focus on getting that Southeast facility, the second CNC in there and running strong, and continue to look at. I think we're continuing to look at projects just across the country, projects that make sense and really hit to our strengths. And we know we can't do every project. We tend to like ones that are difficult and complex. And so we have a lot of those types of projects coming up that are fun, intricate, complex projects. So, I'd say more of the same. Long term, we'll continue to have the approach that we've had, which is let's look at the industry as a whole. Let's understand where the gaps are. Are there gaps in the supply chain? How do those gaps, how do we answer those, where those holes are, and where's the industry going to go? And what do we need to do to keep trying to, accelerate the adoption of mass timber across the country? What do we have to take? What next steps to make that happen? Keep asking ourselves that question.
Thinking about earlier in your career, is there any books or podcasts or courses, curriculum that shifted your way of thinking that maybe you could recommend to other people? And then maybe even later in your career, more recently, that you've come across?
That's a good question. They're all great questions, by the way. So she's been a lot of fun. I took a non-traditional approach to, I say non-traditional as a math major. There's not too many math majors that end up in like commercial construction, at least that I've met. And at one point I wanted to, study math or teach. I ended up becoming a framing contractor just by, not on purpose, just by just the way the things came about, which was fun. And while at Swinerton, I went back and got a construction management degree from the University of Florida. And so I took that course, that online course, over the period of a number of years. And I would say as a whole, it was great. I probably got introduced to a lot about green building and sustainability through that program, which I thought that awareness and education was really good. I liked going through it slowly because it helped me apply what I was learning, one class at a time, one day at a time, to what I was working on currently. And so that definitely continued to spark an interest with me on the sustainability side. And I think also just opened me up to how to learn, I think, in a different way. So like when I approached the mass timber problem, it was talking to people learn by doing, and hey, someone's probably written an article about it somewhere. So go do a lit review on that whole subject and immerse yourself in it and read in it. And that was a skill set I really learned at the University of Florida. So I don't know if I could speak to any one source, but I think I've really enjoyed having that, learn by doing, learn by other people and mentors, and then learn by immersing yourself and reading everything that's out there to read. That's probably how I've approached solving those problems and getting all those different perspectives to come in and try to educate myself on any subject. Yeah.
It's just full immersion. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But I'm learning guitar right now, so I also I love watching people teach guitar on YouTube. I mean, it's a great way to have people break down a complex thing into details. So that's super fun.
You learning acoustic, or are you going full on rock star electric?
I've been like jamming on acoustic guitar for like 20 some years, and that could go from a year between when I pick it up or picking it up every day. But now I have Sam that works with us, he's learning how to play the electric. So he's been trying to convert me to the electric side, which is actually pretty fun. So
nice.
that's what I'm working on.
We got to give a shout out to Sam Dickey. He's a great guy. He came out to our event in Denver, and so he'll be out here. We'll have to cheers and a beer here soon. I guess he's going to be out here doing what would you call it? Sam out in Denver next or here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, for a month. Yeah, he's coming out to do just immerse himself out there in that market for a month and spend just concentrate on spending time with people, getting to know people better. Yeah,
nice. Well, another question that's kind of cool is, what do you wish more people knew about mass timber?
Cool. Okay, that's relatively straightforward. Just because it's wood doesn't mean it will just light up and burn. And I think the one of the things that was really eye-opening in that whole time where I read all those journal articles, there's one journal article about heavy timber construction in the US. And when did heavy timber construction really start? And they reference like the 1820s, there being textile mills in New England, and textile mills basically have a lot of machinery, sparks, fine particulates in the air, a nice condition for fires to start. And they used to build those with like, a post and beam, joists, and like a thin covering on it, 3/4 inch decking at 45-degree angle. And what they would notice is, fires in those buildings is a complete total loss. And if you think about it, a joist has a lot of surface area, but not a lot of mass to it. And so that surface area to mass ratio, a high surface area to mass ratio, leads itself to want to ignite and go on fire. And so they got to a place where in the mid 1820s, there started to be post, beam, and like 4-inch solid plank splined together. And that's really the basis of the Type 4 heavy timber code, is that type of system. And that type of system, what they saw in built mills is anytime there was a fire, there'd be localized damage, but they'd have enough time to put the fire out. That'd be the whole building wouldn't just ignite. It'd be like a slow burning construction. And so that's what they coined it, like slow burning construction. And so I think, to me, that's, everybody hears wood. One, they think they can pick up a hammer and put it in place. And I'll tell you, it's heavy. You can't just pick up a hammer and whack it into place. So number two, they think it's going to just burn because it's wood, but you can't start a campfire with a lighter and a big log.
Right.
I mean, you can sit there all day long and try to do that. It just won't happen. And the whole reason you get twigs is that so you can get to that high surface area to mass ratio where you can get something to ignite quickly and burn up. And so I think that common public misconception about these timber buildings is that they're just going to burn down. And I obviously don't feel that that's the case. I think it's actually the latter. I think they won't burn down. I think they're very resilient. But I think that's just a common misconception is people see wood and they think it's easy to install, it's cheap, and it's going to burn. But I don't think any of those things are true when it comes to mass timber buildings.
We actually talked to David Barber with Air Up the other day, and we did a deep dive on fire and misconceptions and all that kind of stuff. So it was fun to kind of unpack those a little bit, and then also, kind of debunk some of the myths that people talk about for fireproofing, quote unquote, mass timber buildings too. So it's a good conversation.
Yeah. Sweet.
One more heavy question, and then we'll get to a fun one. Who inspires you in your industry and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I really don't think it's one person. I think along my whole journey in this industry, I've been inspired by so many different people and companies. And it's obvious when you go over to Europe and you look at what they're doing in Europe and you see companies like VHOG, who we worked with on Ascent, or Hauslocker, or KLH, which we worked on Ascent, and you see the manner in which they're producing product and building. It's just utterly, totally amazing. And I'd say those European companies absolutely are inspiring because of just how much further they are along in their journey than we are over here. So I look up to them a lot. I would say at the same time, I look to all the US and North American manufacturers and really, Kalishnikov, and look at what Nordic's doing and what Smartlam's doing. And that they're amazing. They're coming in and producing CLT and glulam. They're doing it all just a little bit differently, but they're really producing great buildings, and really, without them, the industry wouldn't be moving forward. You need to have that really solid supply chain. And then I also look at, companies like Ferris here locally and Zippo, their ability to come in, just like on the Portland Airport project, and take on a project of that size and complexity and meet the timing obligations to it and that partnering approach. I mean, that's inspiring. So on the supply side, there's the litany of those people that are inspiring. You guys mentioned Susan Jones, Thomas at Lever. There's so many different architects out there that enjoy getting into the weeds about timber and really try to push to have timber on their projects. So absolutely inspired by them. I think I would go to all the people that work for us. We have some of the best people in the industry. I feel I'm totally biased by that, but I feel like we do. And I learned something new from everybody on our team all the time. And I think, to me, that's actually, seeing the work that people do on our team. And it probably used to be where I knew how to do everything that we're doing, and I don't now. And I can't go do 2/3 or probably 80% of the stuff that our teammates are doing. And that's I'm just impressed by that and inspired by what our team is doing and the services that they're providing. So I think it's all around. I get inspiration from everywhere, but I think those are a lot of different places where that comes from.
Thank you. Before we ask our last question, where can people find you and connect with you and your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. People can get in touch with me on LinkedIn all day long. send me an email and I'll be pretty responsive to that. Check out our website, timberlab.com. Follow what we're doing on social media, on Instagram, etc. And you can see I love pictures. So I think we have really great visual content in pictures. And I happen just to love pictures and videos and seeing the work that we're doing and the folks working on our projects. So I'd encourage people just to track us on our website as well.
Yeah, you do a really good job at timberlab.com. And on LinkedIn, you do a really good job of just keeping everybody up to date. So I hope people can follow you and Timberlab and Swinerton on LinkedIn. It feels like that LinkedIn is kind of the place for mass timber. Am I wrong, or is that?
No, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the spot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. You have a magic wand in your hand. If you can change one thing about the industry, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think, I'd say, on the residential side, there's still a lot of emphasis on, I guess, buildings to be built that aren't built for the long term. And that's probably just a different mindset. Do you want to build a 50-year building? Do you want to build a 150-year building? And I think even though mass timber is probably more expensive on the residential side, that mindset change of building for generations, not building for short-term profit and what the bottom line, the performa is today. It'd be cool to change that and get people to think more long-term, about the, I think we're already doing that on the commercial space. I think we make good long-term buildings, but the residential side, notice that there's not as much care into that. And it's more first cost driven and bottom dollar driven. So if I had to swing that wand, that would be a cool part of the industry to kind of change some of the mentality and get even 15% of the people to think not just about first cost, but to think about, okay, when I'm dead and gone, will this still be a great building? Will it still be operating well? Will it still be efficient? And you think about the impact that has not just on one generation, but multiple generations. And, it'd be cool if people could think that way a little bit more, especially on the residential side. It'd be cool.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Couldn't agree more. Well, Chris, thanks for being here with us. Thanks for helping elevate our timber IQ, sharing about your project, sharing about your team. We're excited to see where Timberlab's going, where they're headed, especially with the expansion of the new facility and moving the kind of focus out to the East Coast. Thank you for being with us here today. We really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Great to see you.
Take care, Chris.
Thank you.